Hello and welcome to the Antoine Anonymous live stream. Um, Welcome. And I see there's three viewers right now. I think they changed the layout of the things. Viewer activity. There we go. No. Yeah, I don't know. Concurrent viewers. Yeah, I don't even see where the viewers are. That's weird. Why would they switch it up? Anyways, that's fine. How are you guys? You guys are good? So today we're going to talk about a little bit of Bill's story. I won't do a stream that's too long because I did order some hamburgers. So, but we can still do a little bit. So I'm just gonna start, and people can join in whenever. If you have any questions at any time, just hit the chat, type some stuff, and press enter. I'll try to read it. And I put the latency very low or something. So when you guys type something, I'm gonna see it right away. And then when I say something, you guys will see it right away. Well, way faster, because before it's like sometimes it took a long time. Anyways, here we go. Where is it? Poof. All right. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Serenity Prayer. Thanks, Simply Deep, 1985. Have you ever heard of the Serenity Prayer? There's actually another part to this prayer, but this is like a really good basic prayer. And prayers are just cool little sayings, pretty much, and there's always meaning behind them. Some of them are like not applicable to you sometimes, but this one is applicable for sure. For sure, it's applicable to everyone, right? Because to accept the things you cannot change, what else can you do but to accept things you can't control? Because if you don't accept them, you'll feel really sad, right? And then the things you can change, which usually is very scary. There's fear behind that, so it takes some courage, and then you gotta know which is which. Like, when is it, right? So that's a good. I like that prayer. It's good. So, like I said earlier, I don't know if you were there, Simply Deep, but today I wanted to do a Bill's story. So I'm gonna go over here. Oh, it's kind of annoying over there, right? Let's see. Let's see if it works. Wait, I'm gonna change this up. Yeah, is that gonna work? Okay, that can work. Let me see if I can zoom this in. Oh, now we're talking. One sec, guys. One sec again, guys. Can I zoom even more? Whoa, now we're really talking. Look at this beautiful text. Okay, I'm gonna be here. There you go. This is what I was talking about. My day is good. My day is very good. So Bill, I did Bob's Nightmare, which is Bob's story a little while ago. But this is actually Bill's story. So the 12 steps of AA were founded by Bill and Bob. So this is Bill. So we're going to read a little bit about his story tonight. And I'm going to chime in whenever I feel it's needed to talk about how it relates to me and how, or maybe what it means. So let's do this. Chapter 1, Bill's story. This is from the big book of AA. War fever ran high in a New England town to which we knew young officers from Plattsburgh were assigned. So this was written in the 30s, by the way. Or maybe even, yes, this was in the 30s. So I don't know what he's talking about here. It might be after the First World War. We don't know. Anyways, we're going to keep reading. We were flattered when the first citizens took us to their homes, making us feel heroic. Here was love, applause, war, moments sublime, with intervals hilarious. I was part of life at last, and in the midst of the excitement, I discovered liquor. So it was early on. I think it was after the First World War. I forgot the strong warnings and the prejudices of my people concerning drink. In time, we sailed for over there. I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol. We landed in England. I visited Winchester Cathedral. Much moved, I wandered outside. My attention was caught by a doggerel on an old tombstone. So this is old words, right? Like a doggerel on a tombstone. That's pretty cool. Anyways, it's pretty cool. A doggerel. What does that mean? Hi, Hussam. Nice to see you again. I'm great. My wife is great. Baby is great. Everything's good. Let me just send this to a friend of mine. There we go. Live stream. Okay, sorry guys. Yeah, so a doggerel on an old tombstone. Here lies a Hampshire grenadier who caught his death drinking cold small beer. A good soldier is ne'er forgot, maybe never forgot, whether he dieth by musket or by pot. Pot, I believe, is probably alcohol. Then it says ominous warning, which I failed to heed. 22 and a veteran of foreign wars, I went home at last. I fancied myself a leader, for had not the men of my battery given me a special token of appreciation, my talent for leadership, I imagine, would place me at the head of vast enterprises which I would manage with the utmost assurance. So, like Catherine, this is actually the story of Bill, and Bill is one of the founders of AA. So we did Bob's Nightmare. I don't know if you remember. Now we're doing Bill's story. I took a night law course and obtained employment as investigator for a surety company. The drive for success was on. I proved to the world I was important. My work took me about Wall Street, and little by little, I became interested in the market. I guess finances. Many people lost money, but some became very rich. Why not I? I studied economics and business as well as law. Potential alcoholic that I was, I nearly failed my law course. At one of the finals, I was too drunk to think or write. That's pretty crazy. So right there, you can see that Bill already had like a big drinking problems. If at the final exams he was too drunk, like, yet alone drunk, but too drunk to think or write. Though my drinking was not yet continuous, it disturbed my wife. We had long talks when I would still her forebodings by telling her that men of genius conceived their best projects when drunk, that the most majestic constructions of philosophic thought were so derived. So he's kind of like justifying his drinking already. All right. By the time I had completed the course, I knew the law was not for me. Oh, great. The inviting maelstrom of Wall Street had me in its grip, so he was really attracted to the Wall Street, the finances and stuff. Business and financial leaders were my heroes. Out of this alloy of drink and speculation, I commenced to forge the weapon that one day would turn in its flight like a boomerang and all but cut me to ribbons. So you guys seen the Wolf of Wall Street, right? I guess it didn't change since then, but like now there's like drugs involved, I guess, if the movie is somewhat based on truth. Living modestly, my wife and I saved $1,000. It went into certain securities, then cheap and rather unpopular. I rightly imagined that they would someday have a great rise. So this is like, I guess, stocks and stuff. I failed to persuade my broker friends to send me out looking over factories and managements, but my wife and I decided to go anyway. I had developed a theory that most people lost money in stocks through ignorance of markets. I discovered many more reasons later on. We gave up our positions and off we rode on a motorcycle, the sidecar stuffed with tent, blankets, change of clothes, and three huge volumes of of a financial reference service. Our friend, though a lunacy commission which should be appointed, perhaps they were right. I had had some success at speculation, so we had a little money. But once we worked on a farm for a month to avoid drawing on our small capital. But we once worked on a farm for a month to avoid drawing on our small capital. I guess they're just trying to save money. They were like living a little bit frugal there. That was the last honest manual labor on my part for many a day. Uh, it's written in Old English. So Catherine, like there was a word earlier. What was it? The word was. Uh, my attention was caught by a doggerel on an old tombstone. A doggerel. Funny word, right? Let's see. Okay, we covered the whole eastern United States in a year. And at the end of it, my reports to Wall Street procured me a position there and the use of a large expense account. I guess he went and studied the market. The exercise of an option brought in more money, leaving us with a profit of several $1,000s for that year. And I guess back then, this is like in the 20s or something, right? So this was a lot of money. For the next few years, fortune threw money and applause my way. I had arrived. No, I think a doggerel is a carved writing on a tombstone. I guess that's my maybe you can check on ChatGPT right now. My judgment and ideas were followed by many to the tune of paper millions. The great boom of the late 20s, yeah, it's in the 20s, was seething and swelling. Drink was taking an important and exhilarating part of my life. There was loud talk in the jazz places uptown. Everyone spent in thousands and chattered in millions. Scoffers could scoff and be damned. I made a host of fair weather friends. My drinking assumed more serious proportions, continuing all day and almost every night. The remonstrances of my friends terminated in a row, and I became a lone wolf. I guess his friends went home because he kept drinking or something. There were many unhappy scenes in our sumptuous apartment. So him and his wife were fighting. There had been no real infidelity, for loyalty to my wife, helped at times by extreme drunkenness, kept me out of those scrapes. So he never cheated on his wife yet, I guess, but probably because he was so drunk, he was just like passed out or something. In 1929, I contracted golf fever. I guess, you know, that's kind of funny. We were at once to the country, my wife to applaud, while I started out to overtake Walter Hagen. Liquor caught up with me much faster than I came up behind Walter. I began to be jittery in the morning. Golf permitted drinking every day and every night. So I guess you could drink. I mean, you can still drink on the field, I guess. ChatGPT says his addiction felt permanent, part of his shape and identity shaped like stone. Really? I guess I missed that. Doggerel. Let's see. What does doggerel mean?
Doggerel is a term used to describe a kind of poetry that's typically pretty rough or irregular in rhythm, and often kind of simplistic or even a little clumsy in its rhyme. It's usually used for humorous or comic effect, so think of it as poetry.
All right, thanks. So I guess it's a type of poem. Every day and every night. It was fun to carom around the exclusive course which has inspired such awe in me as a lad. I acquired the impeccable coat of tan one sees upon the well-to-do. The local banker watched me whirl fat checks in and out of his till with amused skepticism. Okay. Abruptly, in October 1929, hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange. After one of those days of inferno, I wobbled from a hotel bar to a brokerage office. It was 8 o'clock, 5 hours after the market closed. The ticker still clattered. I was staring at an inch of the tape which bore the inscription XYZ32. It has been. Oh, what happened here? Okay. It had been. One sec. There you go. It had been 52 that morning. I was finished, and so were many friends. The papers reported men jumping to death from the towers of the high finance. I guess the market crashed. Yeah, my ChatGPT sounds like I made him Australian. I think Australian's a cool accent. That disgusted me. I would not jump. I went back to the bar. My friends had dropped several million since 10 o'clock. So what? Tomorrow was another day. As I drank, the old fierce determination to win came back. Okay. All right, so the market crashed. Everybody's freaking out. He just gets drunk. He's like, and he's still motivated. Next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. Oh, Montreal. He had plenty of money left, and I thought I had better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our accustomed style. I felt like Napoleon returning from Elba. No, St. Helena for me. But drinking caught up with me again, and my generous friend had to let me go. This time, we stayed broke. And now he's broke. He's definitely broke. We went to live with my wife's parents. I found a job, then lost it as the result of a brawl with a taxi driver. So he was like kind of like a little rascal. He's a little rascal. Okay, that's a good analogy. Um, okay, so you got in a fight with a taxi driver, lost his job. Mercifully, no one could guess that I was to have no real employment for 5 years, or hardly draw a sober breath. So he was drunk and broke. My wife began to work in a department store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. Yeah, this is not gonna last, right? This is not gonna last. I became an unwelcome hanger-on at brokerage places. Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. Uh-oh. I wonder how much time passed since he started drinking, after he came back from the war. And now it's like, he can't stop. It's a necessity. Bathtub gin. 2 bottles of bathtub gin. Oh. Maybe it's during the time that it's the prohibition or nearby. 2 bottles a day and often three got to be routine. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100s, and I would pay my bills at the bars and delicatessens. Delicatessens. This went on endlessly, and I began to waken very early in the morning, shaking violently. So he had the shakes. Right away, he had like very bad withdrawal symptoms. Because if you have shakes in the morning, it means that you are really a bad alcoholic. A tumbler full of gin, followed by half a dozen bottles of beer, would be required if I were to eat any breakfast. Holy shit. So a full tumbler of gin and 6 beers, and only then he could eat breakfast. Nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation, and there were periods of sobriety which renewed my wife's hope. So he did try to stop, I guess, sometimes. But gradually, things got worse. Yeah, it always gets worse. The house was taken over by the mortgage holder. My mother-in-law died. My wife and father-in-law became ill. Oh, so his wife died. No, his wife's mom died. His wife and his wife's dad became ill. Then I got a promising business opportunity. He just kind of schemed over that. Then I got a promising business opportunity. Stocks were at the low point of 1932. So I think this is during the Prohibition. Funny he didn't mention it. And I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profits. Then I went on a prodigious bender, and the chance vanished. So he ruined a deal, got drunk. So he's having bad consequences. You just can't stop drinking. I woke up, and then he said this had to be stopped. I saw I could not take so much as one drink. So this is very important. I saw I could not take so much as one drink. I think this means that you could never just take one drink. It's like me, I could never just take drug one time. So he's kind of like starting to notice his problem, like, and just his behavior, his pattern, all the type of stuff. I was through forever. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises, but my wife happily observed that this time I meant business, and so I did. All right. I think he hit rock bottom. Shortly afterward, I came home drunk. There had been no fight. Where had been my high resolve? That's the thing. It's like me. I even shared in the meeting today when my friend passed away, Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2014. Last thing he told me was he told me to stop doing drugs, go back to bodybuilding. And then when he passed away, I was like, this is the last thing he told me. I'm gonna stop. I told everyone, even people online, I told everyone I would come back, stop partying, stop doing drugs, because I was addicted to them. And I denounced myself to everybody, right? 2 weeks later, I relapsed. So even with my high resolve and all the discipline that I have, I could not stick to the promise I made to myself and everyone. Kind of like him. He was like, told his wife, and his wife really noticed he was different this time, really motivated. But then the same day he comes drunk. I simply didn't know. It hadn't even come to mind. Someone had pushed a drink my way, and I had taken it. Was I crazy? Yes. I began to wonder for such appalling lack of perspective seemed near being just that. So yeah, he's starting to see, like, he agrees with the fact that he's crazy. Renewing my resolve, I tried again. Some time passed, and confidence began to be replaced by cocksureness. I could laugh at the gin mills. Now I had what it takes. One day I walked into a cafe to telephone. No cell phones back then. So I went to a cafe to make a phone call. In no time, I was beating on the bar, asking myself how it happened. So it's like he never plans to drink. He thinks he's gonna be okay. Then somebody offers him one. He drinks. He relapses. Then he's sober. He wants to stop. He goes into a bar to make a phone call, and then he ends up like drinking and wondering what happened. As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I would manage better next time, but I might as well get good and drunk then. This is exactly what I would do. So every time that I knew I wasn't supposed to do it, I was telling myself, okay, this is the last time I'm going to party. This is the last time I'm doing drugs. Might as well go hard. But then 2 weeks later, I would fail again, and I was like, okay, no, this is really the last time. So I must really go hard. So every time after that, I would go even harder because I thought it was the last time. And then he says that I did. So yeah, he did do that. The remorse, horror, and hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity, impending doom. I hardly dared cross the street, lest I collapse and be run down by an early morning truck, for it was carelessly daylight. An all-night place supplied me with a dozen glasses of ale, beer. My writhing nerves were stilled at last. A morning paper told me the market had gone to hell again. Well, so had I. He went to hell. The market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was a hard thought. The market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was a hard thought. Should I kill myself? He said. He's having like some really bad thoughts. No, not now. Then a mental fog settled down. Gin would fix that. So 2 bottles and then oblivion. Whoa, it's getting really bad, huh? The mind and body are a marvelous mechanism, for mine endured this agony for 2 more years. Two more years. Sometimes I stole from my wife's slender purse, so he stole from his wife when the morning terror and madness were on me. Again, I swayed dizzily before an open window or the medicine cabinet where there was poison. Wow, so there was drugs then. There was already drugs back then, right? We can't forget about that. So he was doing drugs too, but drinking was the problem. Cursing myself for a weakling. There were flights from city to country and back as my wife and I sought escape. Then came the night when the physical and mental torture was so hellish, I feared I would burst through my window, sash and all. Somehow I managed to drag my mattress to a lower floor, lest I suddenly leap. So he actually brought his mattress down to the first floor, just in case he impulsively would jump out a window, because he hated himself so much, he was so in pain, he was going through hell. All right. A doctor came with a heavy sedative. So here's the drugs coming in. Next day found me drinking both gin and sedative. So people forget, like in AA, both Bill and Bob, the founders, were actually addicts. But their drug of choice was alcohol. But they were doing other stuff too. This combination soon landed me on the rocks. People feared for my sanity. So did I. I could eat little or nothing when drinking, and I was 40 pounds underweight. My brother-in-law is a physician, and through his kindness and that of my mother, I was placed in a nationally known hospital for the mental and physical rehabilitation of alcoholics. So it was such a problem back then that there were like special hospitals just to deal with alcoholics. Under the so-called belladonna treatment, my brain cleared. Hydrotherapy and mild exercise helped much. Best of all, I met a kind doctor who explained that though certainly selfish and foolish, I had been seriously ill, bodily and mentally. It relieved me somewhat to learn that in alcoholics, the will is amazingly weakened when it comes to combating liquor, though it often remains strong in other respects. So that's interesting too, because if I relate to that because I was able to like compete, because in the height of my addiction, I was already a pro. I already won Mr. Canada, so I was able to like use discipline, diet hard, do all the cardio, not miss a minute, do all these things. Like I had a lot of discipline, but when it came to like not do drugs and resist the temptation, that discipline and that will, that iron will, wasn't there for that. I was weak. I was powerless over that. My incredible behavior in the face of a desperate desire to stop was explained. Understanding myself now, I fared forth in high hope. So now he understands a little bit more. You learn about it more. For 3 or 4 months, the goose hung high. These expressions, they're crazy. I don't even know what it means. I went to town regularly and even made a little money. Surely this was the answer, self-knowledge. So he thought self-knowledge was the answer. So earlier, he just tried to stop because he wanted to stop. Didn't work. Now he went to hospital. People told him that, he's an alcoholic and it's normal the way he's acting. So now he feels like now the solution must be that I know about it more. But it was not, obviously. For the final day came when I drank once more. The curve of my declining moral and bodily health fell off like a ski jump. After a time, I returned to the hospital. This was the finish. The curtain, it seemed to me, my weary and despairing wife was informed that it would all end with heart failure during delirium tremens. Hello, Silver Leaf Court. So Catherine, he was sober. This was written in the 30s. And Bill and Bob are the founders of AA, right? So yes, he did make it. He also created the big book and the 12-step program of the Alcoholics Anonymous, and because of that, he actually saved millions of lives, including mine. So it has a good ending, okay? And shout out to his wife for hanging on with him this whole time so far, you know? So, crazy story. So let's keep going. Um, okay, right here. Or I would develop a wet brain, perhaps within a year. So, a wet brain is when alcohol kind of like destroys your brain and you start slurring your words. They called it wet brain back in the days. Perhaps within a year. So it was like he was nearby. She would soon have to give me over to the Undertaker or the asylum. So that's pretty grimy. They did not need to tell me. I knew and almost welcomed the idea. So he was desperate, lots of despair. Oh, you just left the gym? Good. Good silver leaf. Good stuff. Oh, yeah? Well, that sucks. Yeah, it's your ex definitely is an alcoholic. The wet brain is bad, because you can't really recover from it, I think. That I know of. It was, oh, what happened here? Okay. Okay, didn't tell me. I knew I almost forgot the idea. It was a devastating blow to my pride. I, who had thought so well of myself, my abilities, um, of my capacity to surmount obstacles, was cornered at last. So he is powerless over alcohol. Now I was to plunge into the dark, joining the endless processions of sots who had gone on before. I thought of my poor wife. There had been much happiness after all. What would I not give to make amends? He feels bad. He feels very sorry because he was for sure a dick. But that was over now. No words can tell the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match, the alcohol. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. Alcohol was my master. So it makes us think, is there something that's like the master of us in our life? Like what's guiding all our behaviors that we don't like about ourselves? What's driving all that? Like drug was my master, right? Party drug, woman was my master. Instant gratification was my master. But for you guys in the chat, there's 9 people viewing right now. You can ask yourself this: is do I have a master that I didn't choose, that's controlling me, that's making me act a certain way, right? That's making me suffer? Is there one? That's a good question to ask. Maybe you guys can, if you guys are willing to do that, maybe in the chat you can denounce who your master is. For some people, it's alcohol. For some people, it's like relationships, like codependency, man or woman. For some people, it's food. Food is the master, like tasty food or something. For some people, it's body image. For some people, it's gambling. For some people, it's drugs, like I said. It's like, a lot of us have a master that we're not even aware of sometimes. Like, who's controlling our life? If we are building our life, Usam is aggression. So Usam, you say you have anger problems sometimes. So that's good. That's good you say that. It's emotions are very. Sometimes we're. The emotions are the master of us, and we react powerlessly over them, right? So we got to get back control somehow, right? But it's a good question to ask ourselves. Who is the master? But for Bill over here, alcohol was his master. Trembling, I stepped from the hospital, a broken man. Fear sobered me for a bit. So he was afraid, so he got clean a little bit. Then came the insidious insanity of that first drink. And on Armistice Day, 1934, I was off again. Another relapse. So fear. So at first, like the Decision of getting clean didn't work. The knowledge of himself didn't work, and now fear didn't work. Everyone became resigned to the certainty that I would have to be shut up somewhere or would stumble along to a miserable end. How dark is it before the dawn? So you gotta really hit the low before you get back up. So Don't Be a Fool says, I used to be the most disciplined person with training and nutrition. Since I broke up with my girlfriend, slowly I feel like I'm losing control to the alcohol master. I think I got it under control. Well, then it's a good live stream for you. Then you should definitely buy the big book of AA and read it. You don't have to be in a program or anything like that right now, but like I think it would be a good idea for you to read because there's so many gems in that book. Like I'm reading right now Bill's story. It's like it's very good. Like I can relate to like a lot of that. You know, for me it wasn't alcohol, but you can replace alcohol with drug in this reading. It's like it's talking about my story pretty much. You're saying like but I don't. Slowly I feel like I'm giving it to this demon. Well, don't be a fool. I'm gonna call you. I guess I call you. Don't be a fool. I call you Steve. So Steve, it's good that you're noticing that. But if I was you, I would reach out for help because you'll see how this story goes, right? So now he's like by himself. The whole time he's by himself. He tried hospitals. He's tried institutions. It's not working. In reality, that was the beginning of my last debauchery. I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. Jesus Christ. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. Okay, so was his last stretch. You know, it gets pretty dark, right? It's his last stretch. He hit rock bottom. But now he just said that he was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. So he's talking about the future here. Because, you know, as he writes this, he's already sober and clean. Near the end of that bleak November, I sat drinking in my kitchen. With a certain satisfaction, I reflected there was enough gin concealed about the house to carry me through that night and the next day. So, you know, it's like a relief because he's not going to have the shakes. He's not going to, he's not going to feel bad. There's enough drugs. There's enough like alcohol for him to like be okay for the next 2 days. It makes him happy. I remember that. I remember when I was looking at this, oh, I have enough left. Like I have a good amount left. You know, I was giving, because I was afraid to run out. He's afraid to run out of drinking. I was afraid to run out too. My wife was at work. I wondered whether I dared hide a full bottle of gin near the head of our bed. I would need it before daylight. So he would wake up in the night to drink. All right? Okay. My musing was interrupted by the telephone. The cheery voice of an old school friend asked me if he might come over. He was sober. Whoa. It was years since I could remember his coming to New York in that condition. I was amazed. Rumor had it he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. So another alcoholic. He's sober now. What's happening? I wondered how he had escaped. Escape is a good word because you feel really trapped. Of course, he would have dinner, and then I could drink openly with him. Unmindful of his welfare, I thought only of recapturing the spirit of other days. There was that time we had chartered an airplane and completed a JAG. Chartered an airplane and completed. I guess he's a military buddy. His coming was an oasis in this dreary desert of futility. The very thing. An oasis. Drinkers are like that. That's funny. Okay. The door opened and he stood there, fresh skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened? I pushed the drink across the table. He refused it. Disappointed but curious, I wondered what had got into the fellow. It wasn't himself. Then he said, "Come, what's all this about?" I queried. He looked straight at me, simply but smilingly. He said, "I've got religion." So before the 12th step, I'm going to read it. But the 12 steps are based off the Oxford group. which is like a religious thing. And then he said, I was aghast. So that was it. Last summer, an alcoholic crackpot. Now I suspected a little cracked about religion. So he's very wary about this. Like, what is this? My friend is now like a kook, a religious kook. He had that starry-eyed look. Yes, the old boy was on fire, all right, but bless his heart, let him rant. Besides, my gin would last longer than his preaching. But he did no ranting. In a matter of fact, way he told how two men had appeared in court persuading the judge to suspend his commitment. They had told of a simple religious idea and a practical program of action. That was 2 months ago, and the results was self-evident. It worked. Whoa, it worked. He had come to pass his experience along to me, if I cared to have it. I was shocked, but interested. Certainly I was interested. I had to be, for I was hopeless. Hopeless. It's important. We have to reach that level before we're able to ask for help. If you're not hopeless and you still think you can fix it yourself, and then you keep failing, and you still think you can have some control over it, maybe people, they're not ready to stop yet. We're only able to help people that want to help themselves, and to be able to help yourself, you need to hit a very low rock bottom, in my opinion. He talked for hours. Childhood memories rose before me. I could almost hear the sound of the preacher's voice as I sat on still Sundays. Way over there on the hillside, there was that proffered temperance pledge I never signed. My grandfather's good-natured contempt of some church folk and their doings, his insistence that the spheres really had their music, but his denial of the preacher's right to tell him how he must listen, his fearlessness as he spoke of these things just before he died. He's talking about his grandpa, I guess. These recollections welled up from the past. They made me swallow hard. I guess it was getting emotional. That wartime day in Old Winchester Cathedral came back again. I had always believed in a power greater than myself. So that's important. I had often pondered these things. I was not an atheist. Few people really are, for that means blind faith in the strange proposition that this universe originated in a cipher and aimlessly rushes nowhere. My intellectual heroes, the chemists, the astronomers, even the evolutionists suggested vast laws and forces at work. Despite contrary, so it's kind of funny now. He kind of went spiritual, right? The whole thing was him drinking and fucking up. And now it's kind of going spiritual. I had I had little doubt that a mighty purpose and rhythm underlay all. How could there be so much precise and immutable law and no intelligence? I simply had to believe in a spirit of the universe who knew neither time nor limitation. That's deep. I like that. But that was as far as I had gone. With ministers and the world's religions, I parted right there. When they talked of a God personal to me, who was love, superhuman strength, and direction, I became irritated and my mind snapped shut against such a theory. So, a God personal to me, that's important too. That's important too. All right? To Christ, I conceded the certainty of a great man, not too closely followed by those who claimed him. His moral teaching, most excellent for myself, I had adopted those parts which seemed convenient and not too difficult. The rest I disregarded. So, what he did, I guess he got inspired by Jesus and his moral teaching, right? He's not talking about all the miracles and stuff because he says the rest he disregarded, right? But the moral teachings, important. The wars which had been fought, the burnings and chicanery that religious dispute had facilitated made me sick. So yeah, a lot of religions started war, right? But who's religious? Man is religious. Man is flawed. Man starts war. But the moral message of the prophets from the Bible, the Quran, like Muhammad, Jesus, even the Old Testament, all these guys, this is what's important, what they're saying, right? I honestly doubted whether, on balance, the religions of mankind had done any good, so he doesn't really believe in religion. Judging from what I had seen in Europe, and since the power of God in human affairs was negligible, the brotherhood of man is a grim jest. So it's not like, it's like a bad joke, he says, pretty much. If there was a devil, he seemed the boss universal, and he certainly had me because of the alcoholism. But my friend sat before me, and he made the point blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. Very important. I relate to that because every time that I had the obsession to use drugs, what removed the obsession wasn't me. It was the higher power. What? Okay. So he couldn't remove the obsession, but God had done for him what he could not do for himself, his friend. Okay. His human will had failed. My will had failed. Bill's will had failed. His friend's wills had failed. Doctors had pronounced him incurable. So the doctors of the hospital, a lot of alcoholics, they would say like, yeah, this guy is a lost cause. My friends thought I was a lost cause too. My friend Frank McGrath, he really thought I was not going to be able to like get better and come back. He thought I was done, which is normal. If you look at my track record, my actions, it was understandable. Society was able to lock him up. Like myself, he had admitted complete defeat. Very important. Then he had, in effect, been raised from the dead, suddenly taken from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known. It's like me right now. I'm at the best spot in my life ever. Ever. All right? I never could have guessed to be where I am now and feel what I feel now and have what I have now. Had this power originated in him? Obviously, it had not. There had been no more power in him than there was in me at that minute. And this was none at all. No power. No more power. Powerless over alcohol. That floored me. It began to look as though religious people were right after all. Here was something at work in a human heart which had done the impossible. The impossible is stop drinking. My ideas about miracles were drastically revised right then. Never mind the musty part. Here sat a miracle directly across the kitchen table. His buddy who stopped drinking. He shouted great tidings. I saw my friend was much more than inwardly reorganized. He was on a different footing. His roots grasped a new soil. Despite the living example of my friend, there remained in me the vestiges of my old prejudice. The word God still aroused a certain antipathy. So he doesn't like the word God, right? A lot of time, honestly, the word God is like what keeps people away from the 12 steps. So that's why a lot of time we use words like higher power or God of your understanding. Because, your belief is really personal. And with the 12 steps or whatever struggle you have, you need to find your own higher power, whatever it is, as long as it's helping you, this is the one for you. When the thought was expressed that there might be a God personal to me, this feeling was intensified. I didn't like the idea. So he was like, didn't like it. Like I have to like believe in God to like get clean. He didn't like it. I could go for such conceptions as creative intelligence, universal mind, or spirit of nature, but I resisted the thought of a czar of the heavens. I guess a king of the heavens. However loving his sway might be, I have since talked with scores of men who felt the same way. So, like, since then, because he created the 12 step, there's a lot of people who they don't like the idea of like the sky daddy, right? My friend suggested what then seemed a novel idea. He said, "Why don't you choose your own conception of God?" Whoa. Why don't you choose your own conception of God. That statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. Yeah, kind of like a spiritual awakening right there. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Very important. I'm going to repeat it. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me to make my beginning. So to start, you just need to be willing to believe. You don't even need to believe. You need to be willing to believe in a power greater than yourself. That's very powerful. It's pretty cool too. So if you don't believe in something, you should be willing to believe in something, and then your recovery will be able to start with that. I saw that growth could start from that point. Upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. Thus, I was convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want it enough. At long last, I saw, I felt, I believed. Scales of pride and prejudice fell from my eyes. A new world came into view. The real significance of my experience in the cathedral burst upon me. For a brief moment, I had needed and wanted God. Wanted, willingness to believe. There had been a humble willingness to have him with me, and he came. But soon, the sense of his presence had been blotted out by my worldly clamors, mostly those within myself. And so it had been ever since. How blind I had been. At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Whoa. At the hospital, I was separated from the alcohol for the last time. Treatment seemed wise, for I showed signs of delirium tremens. All right. There, I humbly offered myself to God, as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself undeservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, that without him I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away. The friend is God. Root and branch. I have not had a drink since. Here's your happy ending, Catherine. My schoolmate visited me, and I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. We made a list of people I had hurt. So this is the steps. So now the steps are being made. So I fully acquainted him with my problems. So he wrote everything that he did, right? The problems, deficiencies, and then he told him, another person. Then he made a list of people to make amends to. We made a list of people I had hurt or toward whom I felt resentment. I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals, admitting my wrong. Never was I to be critical of them. I was to right all such matters to the utmost of my ability. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my requests bore on my usefulness to others. Usefulness to others, to give back. Then only might I expect to receive. So and then we say you can only keep what you have by giving it away. So that's pretty much what he said here. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my requests bore on my usefulness to others. Then only might I expect to receive. But that would be in great measure. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Simple, but not easy, a price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. As a drug addict or an alcoholic, we are self-centered. A lot of people are, even if they're not addicts, right? I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. These were Revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had ever never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up, as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. All right. For a moment, I was alarmed and called my friend, the doctor, to ask if I was still sane. He listened in and wondered as I talked. Finally, he shook his head, saying, "Something had happened to you, but I don't understand. But you had better hang on to it. Anything is better than the way you were." So that's pretty cool, right? He's like, "I don't understand what happened, but you're better, so keep doing what you're doing." But what happened is that he found his higher power, and he had a spiritual awakening kind of thing, and that spiritual thing that happened is what's keeping him on the good path. The good doctor now sees many men who had such experiences. He knows that they are real. While I lay in the hospital, the thought came that there were thousands of hopeless alcoholics who might be glad to have had to have what had been so freely given to me. So he's thinking about all the other alcoholics that are suffering right now. Perhaps I could help them. I could help some of them. That in turn might work with others. So he wants to help other alcoholics, and he wants the other alcoholics to help other alcoholics. And then the program is like cooking up right now. To us, the program is cooking up. My friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. So the new principles he learned, he needs to apply them in work, in relationships, everywhere. Particularly was it imperative to work with others as he had to work with me. Faith without works was dead, he said. And how it's kind of hard to read at this point. And how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his emotional freedom, spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. And if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. All or nothing. My wife and I abandoned ourselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problem. Thank God he did that, honestly. Because he wanted to do that, he saved billions of lives in the future. Like there's people who were addicts and alcoholics that were not even born when he wrote this, that he actually helped. It was fortunate for my old business associates remained skeptical for a year and a half, during which I found little work. I was not too well at the time and was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. This sometimes nearly drove me back to drink, but I soon found that when all other measures failed, work with another alcoholic would save the day. So what kept him clean is working with another alcoholic. So this is why I'm doing the live stream. It really helps me to stay clean. Many times I have gone to my old hospital in despair. On talking to a man there, I would be amazingly lifted up and set on my feet. It is a design for living that works in rough going. All right. We commenced to make many fast friends, and the fellowship had grown. The fellowship has grown up among us, of which it is a wonderful thing to feel a part. The joy of living, we really situations righted, feuds and bitterness of all sorts wiped out. So far it's been working. With other people too. I have seen men come out of asylums and resume a vital place in the lives of their families and communities, becoming good members of society again. Business and professional men have regained their standing. There is scarcely any form of trouble and misery which had not been overcome among us. In one western city and its environs, surroundings, there are 1,000 of us and our families. Okay, we meet 1,000 of recovering alcoholic. We meet frequently so that newcomers may find a fellowship. So this is the meeting. We meet. The meetings were born. The AA meetings were born. Pretty cool, right? That's cool. We meet frequently so that the newcomers may find a fellowship they seek. At these informal gatherings, one may often see from 50 to 200 persons. We are growing in numbers and power. I wonder what is this. We're going to go see at the end. In 2006, oh, it's pretty cool. Let's see that. And so I guess that it's an edition of 2006. In 2006, AA is composed of over 106,000 groups. That's cool. For sure, it's bigger than since then. And I'll add NA on top of that and CA on top of that and all the other 12-step programs like GA, OA, and all that stuff. It's maybe a million. Like, who knows? A million groups. An alcoholic in his cups is an unlovely creature. Our struggles with them are variously strenuous, comic, and tragic. One poor chap committed suicide in my home. Oh, Jesus Christ. He could not or would not see our way of life. He could not or would not. That's crazy. There is, however, a vast amount of fun about it all. I suppose some would be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity, but just underneath there is a deadly earnestness. Faith has to work 24 hours a day, in and through us, or we perish. So it's a 24-hour job to stay clean and sober. It's an all-day thing. Most of us feel we need to look no further for utopia. We have it with us right here and now. That's important. That's a nice little sentence. Each day, my friend's simple talk in our kitchen multiplies itself in a widening circle of peace on earth and goodwill to men. Bill W., co-founder of AA, died January 24th, 1971. Long time ago. All right. That was good. Great story. I don't know if you guys were there since the beginning or not, but do you have anything to ask, any questions, any comments in the chat before I shut this down? Thanks for being there. You know, gave me a reason to go to read it again. I've read it multiple times, but it's been a few years I didn't read it. I think it's the first time I read it in like 5 years. So thank you for that. So if you guys have any questions, any comments, now's the time. Anything you want to talk about before I shut it down? See if my burgers are here. Now's the time. Either way, there's a lot more readings. And if you like the part about the higher power, there's a cool chapter. It's called, what is it called? Read the Agnostics or something. And it's pretty cool. It's like, it talks exactly about how he felt at the beginning. You know, when his friends first started talking about God, and he was like, get the fuck out of there with that God talk. Right? That's pretty much what he said. That's the feeling I have from it. But he wasn't alone. Like, I was like that. I was like, when I first went to rehab and he talked to me about the higher power, I was like, what? I have to believe in God, like, or a higher power for the program to work? He said, yeah. I said, I don't have one. He said, well, make one up. You know, and I've said it before, but I chose Thor, the god of thunder. But it doesn't matter what I chose, because what was important was the willingness to believe. So I was willing to have one. You know, I could have chosen a doorknob at that point. It would have worked. It would have worked in the sense that it would have worked with me starting the program. So some people have some people are religious. They already have their higher power and it's working for them. It's great. But some people are more like me. Like I did a lot of critical thinking in my life. And, I wouldn't understand that why would a group of people have the answer to go to heaven because they're born in a certain part of the world, and then the other part of the world, like for example, I don't believe in Jesus, these people would go to hell just because they're born somewhere else. So I find that it wasn't fair. So I was like, I was interested in religion because it's like it's not fair for the people who never got exposed to the one that's supposed to be the right one. You know what I mean? Husan is saying, I wish you all the best in the life and in the next. Best regard to Taylor. Everyone else, take care. Yes, sir, Husam. Thank you. And yeah, thank you for being there. Yes, Alhamdulillah. Which is what does it mean again? Alhamdulillah. It means like um, mashallah is like what's mashallah mean? God willing? Is that what it means? Alhamdulillah is, or Alhamdulillah is God willing, or is it like praise Allah? What is it? I forgot. You gotta tell me. I'm supposed to know this. My friend, one of my best friend is like Muslim. I should know this. Alhamdulillah. Praise God. I don't remember. Hussam, hit me up. Hit me up with the meaning of this. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna see. I don't know if you can fast enough. Maybe Hussam left actually. Oh, my phone's dead. Okay, let's see. I'm curious now. What does Alam? There you go. It means praise to be God. All praise belong to Allah. So it's pretty much like a shout out to God, right? That's what it is. All praise to Allah. Thank you, Usam. Yes, it's like a shout out to God. It's like shout out to God. Shout out to Allah. Allah just means God in Arabic. You know, I thought before that Allah was like another God, but it's like, you know, in French, God is Dieu, D-I-E-U. Well, in English, Dieu is God, and in Arab, it's Allah. So, oh, so it's the same God. That's pretty cool. Anyways, thanks everyone for watching, and thanks everyone for being here. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you find the help you need. If you're struggling, don't suffer in silence. You're not gonna get better, you know. And if you think you don't deserve to be better, I'm telling you, you deserve to be better. You know, you deserve to like feel good. You deserve to enjoy life as it is and be okay with it, you know. All right, well, peace out, guys. Hope you like the story. It's a good one.